two sisters. Both slept with the King of England. Both faced the consequences of catching the most dangerous man in Europe's attention. One became Queen of England, changed the course of Western religion, and was beheaded at age 35 on fabricated charges of adultery with 5 men, including her own brother. The other, married for love, lived in quiet obscurity, and died peacefully in her bed at age 44. Here's the question that should keep you up at night. Which sister made the right choice? Mary Boleyn chose survival. She became Henry VIII's mistress when refusing wasn't really an option, bore the shame quietly, then disappeared from history by marrying a man with no money or status purely because she loved him. Her family disowned her. History forgot her. She lived. Anne Boleyn chose power. She refused to be Henry's mistress, held out for marriage, became Queen of England, broke England from the Catholic Church, and paid for her ambition with her head on a scaffold. Her daughter became the greatest queen in English history. She died. The tragedy is that neither sister really had a choice. They were both playing a game where the rules changed constantly, where the king held all the power, and where being too interesting or too boring could both get you killed. This is the story of two women navigating the most dangerous court in Europe, and how the same man destroyed them both in completely different ways. And you're about to discover why everything you think you know about the Boleyn sisters is probably wrong. Let's start with what we don't know, because it reveals everything about being a woman in Tudor England. We don't know when either sister was born. We're not even completely certain which one was older. We don't know what Mary Boleyn looked like because the portrait we thought was her might actually be Anne. We have no definitive image of Mary at all. The most famous portrait of Anne wasn't painted during her lifetime. For centuries, historians assumed Mary was the eldest because when Anne received titles, documents referred to her as one of the daughters rather than the eldest daughter. But that's circumstantial evidence, not proof. Think about what this means. These women shaped English history. One of them literally changed the state religion and produced Elizabeth I. And we don't know their birth years with certainty because in Tudor England, nobody bothered to carefully record the births of daughters. Sons got documented. Male heirs mattered. Girls were footnotes until they became useful through marriage or childbearing. The uncertainty surrounding Mary and Anne's basic biographical details isn't a historical accident. It's evidence of systematic disregard for women's existence, independent of their relationships to men. What we do know is that they were probably born at Blickling Hall near Norwich around 1500, give or take a few years on either side. Their childhood was spent primarily at Hever Castle in Kent, inherited by their father Thomas Boleyn in 1505. And here's where their story actually begins, because Thomas Boleyn did something unusual that would shape both daughters' fates. Thomas Boleyn was aggressively ambitious in an era when social climbing was nearly impossible without royal blood. He'd risen through a combination of diplomatic skill, linguistic talent, and being exceptionally good at tournaments, which mattered enormously to Henry VII and later Henry VIII. Kings who loved jousting promoted men who could break lances alongside them, but Thomas also genuinely believed in humanist education, the Renaissance idea that learning improved people regardless of gender. So he did something radical. He educated his daughters exactly as he educated his son George. Most noble families taught girls enough to be marriageable, embroidery, household management, decorative accomplishments, maybe a little French or music. The Boleyns taught Mary, Anne, and George languages, theology, philosophy, music, and rhetoric at advanced levels. This wasn't normal. This was revolutionary. And it had enormous consequences. By educating his daughters to be intellectually sophisticated, Thomas created women who expected to be taken seriously in conversations with educated men. That expectation would serve Anne brilliantly and then destroy her. But Thomas had practical motivations too. If you're a diplomat constantly negotiating across European courts, having children who speak multiple languages fluently, understand complex politics, and can report back intelligently makes them valuable intelligence assets. Thomas was preparing his children, all 3 of them, to advance the family's interests across Europe. He just couldn't predict that his careful preparation would end with 2 of his 3 children executed for treason and the 3rd dying in disgrace. Around 1513, when Anne was approximately 12 years old, Thomas achieved a major coup, securing her a position at the court of Margaret of Austria, regent of the Netherlands for the Holy Roman Emperor. This was huge. Margaret's court was considered the finest finishing school for young ladies in all of Europe. Getting Anne placed there was like, as one historian put it, getting your daughter cast in a Steven Spielberg film. This was the big leagues. Mary, the elder sister, was left behind at Hever doing embroidery. The favoritism must have stung. Anne was clearly Thomas's preferred daughter, the one he considered exceptionally intelligent and worthy of investment. Mary was adequate. Anne was special. That dynamic would shape their relationship forever. But Mary's chance came in 1514, when both sisters were chosen to serve Henry VIII's younger sister, Mary Tudor, who was being sent to marry the elderly French king, Louis XII. Anne was still in the Netherlands, so Mary went alone to France. The marriage lasted 3 months. Louis XII died in January 1515, probably from trying to keep pace with his 16-year-old bride. Mary Tudor returned to England, but Mary Boleyn stayed in France, now serving the new French queen Claude, wife of King Francis I. Soon afterward, Anne joined her sister at the French court. And this is where their paths truly diverged. At the French court under Francis I, Mary and Anne's fundamental personality differences became starkly apparent, setting them on collision courses with radically different outcomes. Mary Boleyn was, by all accounts, beautiful, sweet-natured, compliant, and not particularly ambitious. The French court was sophisticated, artistic, glamorous, and morally flexible. King Francis I was a notorious womanizer who collected beautiful women like other men collected paintings. Mary caught his attention. She became his mistress. This wasn't a choice. You don't refuse a king, especially not a foreign king when you're serving at his court, and refusal would humiliate your family and destroy your father's diplomatic career. Word got out about Mary's affair with Francis. Her reputation was damaged. She disappeared from official records for 5 years, possibly sent away to a noble French household where she could be discreetly hidden while her reputation theoretically mended. Meanwhile, Anne thrived. Where Mary had been overwhelmed by court intrigue, Anne reveled in it. She loved the intellectual combat, the sophisticated conversation, the game of court politics. Queen Claude, notably pious but retiring, asked Anne specifically to remain in her service even while sending other English ladies home. A French queen wanted Anne. This tells you everything about the sisters' personalities. Mary was conventionally beautiful, sexually available, easily manipulated. Anne was striking rather than beautiful, intellectually sharp, challenging, charismatic. Men desired Mary. Men were fascinated by Anne. Desire fades. Fascination lingers. Anne absorbed everything the French court offered: sophisticated fashion, religious reformist ideas from Margaret of Angoulême, examples of powerful women like Louise of Savoy, who ruled as regent. Anne spent 7 years becoming cosmopolitan, educated, confident, and convinced she was men's intellectual equal. That conviction would eventually cost her head. In 1520, Mary Boleyn returned to England. On February 4th of that year, she married William Carey, a gentleman of Henry VIII's court. King Henry VIII attended the wedding. That's significant. Kings didn't attend minor nobles' weddings unless there was specific reason. The specific reason soon became clear. Henry began an affair with Mary shortly after her marriage. This was standard practice for Henry. He waited until women were married so any children could be claimed as the husband's. Plausible deniability, legal protection, moral hypocrisy dressed as respectability. How much choice did Mary have? None, realistically. When the King of England indicates interest, you comply or face potential banishment for yourself and your family. Mary became Henry's mistress. She may have borne him a child, though this is disputed. What's certain is that she was mistress to the most powerful man in England and remained completely overlooked by most at court. She was sexually available, pleasant, and forgettable. Henry's interest faded. By 1526, it was definitely over. Meanwhile, Anne returned to England around 1522, bringing 7 years of French sophistication and confidence with her. In March 1522, she made her public debut at the English court, playing the role of Perseverance in an allegorical pageant where virtuous ladies were imprisoned in a castle and then liberated by the king. Looking back, the irony is devastating. Anne playing Perseverance would indeed need to persevere through years of waiting, political intrigue, and eventually fabricated charges and execution. But in 1522, she was simply the dazzling new arrival who outshone every other woman at court, including her sister. Anne Boleyn had something contemporaries struggled to define. She wasn't the most beautiful woman at court. Multiple observers described her as moderately pretty, or focused on specific features like her compelling eyes rather than overall beauty. But Anne had charisma, that indefinable quality that makes someone magnetic. She commanded attention when entering rooms. People wanted to listen to her. She was fascinating in a way that transcended physical appearance, and Henry VIII, around 1526, noticed. The popular misconception is that Henry fell for Anne immediately. Actually, it took him about 4 years after her return to even notice her seriously, but once he did, he fell completely. He pursued her obsessively. He showered her with gifts, wrote passionate love letters, visited her constantly, tried desperately to make her his mistress. And Anne, having watched her sister be used and discarded, refused. She retreated to Hever Castle and stayed there for 2 years. This wasn't playing hard to get. This was genuinely hard to get.